Hello there. I hope your day is treating you gently. Now listen. Ms. Diep put up a little sign by her gate. Mom's Hill Fruits, fresh from our little hill. For a few quiet days, it worked exactly the way a good sign should. Then a man from the main market copied her name 10 minutes down the road, and customers started asking, "Is this the cheap one?" If you've ever built something small and precious, you know how fast that can shake you. If this kind of story matters to you, give the video a like and subscribe. It helps more people find it. Today we'll explore how one tired mother protected her name, her hill, and her daughter's pride without shouting or fighting. Some mornings nobody stopped. Some mornings 1 or 2 people did. Just enough to keep hope alive. A woman walking home from the fields bought a few pieces. A man riding by on a bicycle grabbed 3 mandarins for the road. Every coin went into an old jar on the shelf. Not a fortune, but a different kind of money. Money that came straight to their gate. It wasn't just income. It was proof that someone could stop at their own gate and choose them. The jar sat there like a quiet vote of confidence. For a mother who measures days in salt and rice, even a few coins can feel like breathing room. Here's a question worth holding on to. How long does new pride stay yours before life tests it? One evening, after the sun slid behind the hill, they counted what they had. "It's small," Miss Diep said, looking at the coins. "It's ours," James answered. Nye touched the jar with just 1 finger, like it was delicate. "I like this kind of small," she said. Anna, of course, tried to put her whole hand in the jar. "Mine," she declared. "Not exactly," her mother said, laughing, "but you helped." For a little while, that's how it went. Hill in the morning, gate in the afternoon, kitchen at night. A simple rhythm, a new pride. But life almost never lets a woman enjoy something new for too long before testing it. One day, on her way to the main market with a half-full basket, she still split her fruit between the gate and the old routine. She noticed something odd. About 10 minutes down the road from her house, right where the path met the wider road, a new table had appeared. It looked familiar. Same rough wood, same cloth, same kind of basket, and hanging above it, on a piece of board that used to be part of a crate, were carefully painted words. Hill Mom Fruits underneath, in smaller letters. Fresh Hill Fruits. Special price. For a second, she just stood there, staring. Her breath caught somewhere between her chest and her throat. A man she recognized from the main market sat behind the table. He wasn't from her village, but she'd seen him there for years. Loud voice, strong arms, always pushing a little extra fruit onto the scale, always pushing a little extra pressure onto small sellers like her. He saw her and smiled brightly. "Ah," he called, "the famous Mom's Hill Fruits lady." She stepped closer. "You copied my name," she said quietly. "Not exactly," he replied. "Yours is Mom's Hill Fruits. Mine is Hill Mom Fruits. Different, see?" I moved the words around. He pointed. "And here's the uncomfortable question. When someone steals by inches, do you still call it stealing?" "People might get confused," she said. "That's their problem," he answered, shrugging. "Anyway, you don't own hills, or moms, or fruit." Her hands tightened on the handle of her basket. "Why here?" she asked. "Why this road?" He leaned back on his chair. "Your little sign is cute," he said. "People talk, you know. There's a mom at the hill gate selling fruit." I thought, That's a nice idea. So I made my own. But I picked a better spot. More traffic. That's just business. If you wanted to sell at a gate, he added, you should have done it years ago before I thought of it. She felt her cheeks heat. I did it last week, she said. He laughed. Exactly. Late, he replied. Don't worry, there's room for everyone. If your fruit is really as good as your sign, people will still climb the extra hill. He looked at her basket, then back at his. Or, he said, voice shifting a little, you could sell me some of your fruit at a cheap price. I'll add it to mine. Less work for you. More money than you'll make standing at your gate. He said it like he was offering kindness. But to her, it felt like someone trying to buy her name, her hands, her hill, all in one bargain. I'll keep my fruit, she said. As you like, he answered. But don't be surprised when people start saying, I bought from the hill, Mom, and they mean me. She walked away, the basket suddenly heavier. He'd turned her own words into a trap. If she protested, she sounded petty. If she stayed quiet, he grew bolder. That is how small sellers get squeezed. One smile, one shrug, one different see at a time. On the path home, his words followed her like a stray dog. At home, Nye ran to the gate. Did we sell anything while you were gone? She asked James. A little, he said. 2 oranges, 3 mandarins, enough to pay for salt and a small bag of rice. Good, Nye said, pleased. Soon people will know the name, Mom's Hill Fruits. Her mother flinched. What's wrong? The girl asked. Nothing, Miss Diep said quickly. I'm just tired. But that night, when everyone was asleep, she stood in front of their sign with a candle and whispered the words out loud. Mom's Hill Fruits, she said. Fresh from our little hill. They still felt like hers. But now, down the road, somebody else was using almost the same music to sing a different song. So here's the next question. What happens when your work stays the same, but your name starts slipping? The next few days were confusing. At first, nothing seemed to change. A neighbor stopped to buy 2 mandarins on her way home, the same as always. A man from town who'd bought from them once came back saying, my wife liked those small oranges. He didn't mention the new table down the road. But then, little things started to happen. One afternoon, 2 women bikered at the gate talking to each other. Is this the cheap one? One asked. That one question was the hook snapping shut. A copied name, and suddenly her gate sounded negotiable. I don't know, the other said. My cousin said Hill Mom Fruits near the bend. Maybe this is it. Anna hopped up on her stool. This is Mom's Hill Fruits, she announced. Our hill, our fruits. The women laughed at her boldness. Your mom is the hill? One teased. Mom and Hill together, Anna declared. Nye stepped in, cheeks pink. This is Mom's Hill Fruits, she said. With the sign. The one you heard about is farther down the road. Different table, different people. The women glanced at the sign, at each other, at the fruit. Which one is cheaper? One asked. And we're not the cheapest, Miss Diep said quietly. We're just us. The women hesitated, then bought a few pieces anyway. But as they left, one said, half joking, so many hills, so many moms, my head is spinning. The next day, a man from the next village stopped, frowned at the sign and said, I bought from you yesterday. No, Miss Diep replied. I was on the hill yesterday. The girls kept the gate, but I remember every face. Maybe it was that other one, he muttered. He said, Hill Mom, so many times I thought of you. He bought nothing and walked away. That kind of harm doesn't leave splinters, it leaves questions. Was her fruit not good enough? Was her sign foolish? The truth was simpler. The road now had two almost identical names, and people were mixing them up until they didn't trust either one. That's the moment the gate feels attacked, not by hands, but by confusion. A name gets muddy, and a customer disappears. You can imagine what that does to a woman who already questions herself every half hour. That evening, she sat on the step, elbows on her knees, watching the sign sway just a little in the evening breeze. James came out, wiped his hands on a towel. You're staring at that board like it insulted your mother, he said gently. Maybe it did, she answered. Nobody knows whose hill is whose anymore. She told him about the man down the road, about the copied name, about the conversations at the gate. James listened, jaw tight. He's not just copying the idea, he said. He's copying your name, on purpose. He said, I don't own hills, she muttered, or moms or fruit. He's right about that part, James said, but he's wrong about something bigger. What? She asked. You own your story, James replied. He can move the words around. He can't steal where they came from. She shook her head. Story doesn't pay for rice, she said. No, he agreed, but it decides what kind of woman your daughters see when they look at you. Let me pause and recap. The sign brought a new pride to their gate, and the copy sign tried to turn that pride into doubt. The next morning, instead of going straight to the hill, she walked to Aunt High's field first. You heard? She asked, not even saying what. I hear everything, the older woman said. The new table, the copy sign, the man who thinks he invented fruit. What should I do? Ms. Diep asked. Fight? Shout? Change my name? Take down my sign? Aunt High cut a weed with her knife like it had offended her. You remember when I grew short trees and everyone laughed? She said. Tall, they said. Tall trees look nicer. Short trees look funny. Then, 3 years later, they all had short trees. Did I change back to tall? No, Miss Diep said. Exactly, the older woman replied. You can't stop people from copying. You can only decide whether you will stop being yourself. And if he takes all my customers, Miss Diep whispered, then we'll sit here and cry together. Aunt High said, but at least we'll know you didn't sell your name for a discount. Now here's the micro hook that matters. If you won't change your name, what do you change? That afternoon, while James fixed a loose board in the yard, Ms. Diep did something brave in a very quiet way. She took a piece of cardboard from an old box, sat at the table and wrote in careful letters, This is the first Mom's Hill fruits. We pick on our own hill at this house. You are welcome to ask our story. Nye watched her, eyes wide. That's a lot of words, the girl said. Sometimes you need words, her mother replied. Not to shout at people, just to tell the truth to anyone who wants to listen. They hung the cardboard right under the wooden sign. Not fancy, not pretty. Very clear. The first person to stop after that was a young man on a motorbike. He read the top sign, then the bottom. What does it mean? Ask our story, he asked. It means we really live here, Nye said. These trees back there are ours. Mom planted them. She carries the baskets. We are not just borrowing someone's name. The man laughed softly. Who is copying who? He asked. Oh, that's a longer story, James said, stepping in. "You sure you have time?" The young man shrugged. "I have time for good fruit," he said, "and good stories." He bought some mandarins, not many, enough. As he left, he called back, "I passed the other one on the way, but I think I like this hill better." That's the first callback to the opening. The sign was never only about fruit. It was about trust at the gate. Later that week, on her way to the main road, Ms. Diep walked past the other table again. The man from the market looked less cheerful this time. His sign was a bit crooked now, one corner already starting to peel. "Business good?" he asked, half mocking. "Enough," she said. He eyed her. "I hear you've been telling people I copied you," he said. "That's not nice." "I've been telling people my story," she answered. "If they ask." "What do they care?" he scoffed. "Fruit is fruit." She looked at his baskets. They were full, shiny, perfect on the outside. But when she picked up one mandarin, she felt how soft it was underneath. "Maybe," she said quietly. "But some people like to know who grew it, who carries it, which hill it comes from." He snatched the fruit back, irritated. "People don't have time for that," he said. "Some do," she replied. "Enough for me. Now let me recap one more time, because this is where the pressure changes. She didn't win by humiliating him. She won by refusing his definition of what matters. She walked home, not with victory, but with something steadier, a small, stubborn peace. At the gate, Anna ran out to meet her. "Mom! Mom!" the little girl cried. "A lady from town came. She said, 'Is this the real Mom's Hill fruits?'" "What did you say?" her mother asked. Anna lifted her chin. "I say, yes, this is Mom, this is Hill, this is us." "And did she buy?" Miss Diep asked, almost afraid. Anna nodded so hard her hair bounced. "Many," she said. "Her bag big. Inside on the shelf, the jar was a little heavier that night. Not by much, but by enough. Remember the copied name and that cheap question. She couldn't control traffic, but she could control truth at her own gate, day after day. When the house was quiet and the girls were asleep, Mrs. Diep stepped outside for a moment. The sign swayed gently in the night breeze. The cardboard with her extra words rustled softly. "Here's the last question before we close the circle. When you're tired, what keeps you standing? Anger or something calmer?" She touched the wood with the tips of her fingers. "This is my hill," she whispered. "This is my name. I will not take it down just because someone else learned how to paint." In the end, nobody smashed her table. A louder kind of damage tried to do it, by taking her words, rearranging them, and letting confusion chase customers away. She felt that weight in her basket, in the questions about the cheap one, and in the man who walked off without buying. But James reminded her she owned her story, and Aunt Hai reminded her she didn't have to stop being herself. So she hung a plain cardboard truth beneath the painted board and invited people to ask. A young rider listened and bought enough. A woman from town came, and Anna stood tall. "This is Mom. This is Hill. This is us." The jar grew heavier, only a little, but enough. In the night breeze, the sign swayed, with her candle-lit whisper remembered. And Ms. Diep chose not silence, but steady peace.